Welcome everybody to the second video of my beginner series where I'm trying to show you the key milestones, at least what I consider to be key milestones for Dyson Sphere Program. On the previous episode we focused on the essentials basically, which is build a basic factory with the basic materials and start producing the blue cubes. And what you're seeing now is the next step. So I've been developing this and getting to the red cubes, which you can see right here in the middle of your screen. I created another factory for red cubes, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. So what do you need? Let me get out from here. What do you need for red cubes? Let's go to the replicator. I find it easier, so click the F key on your keyboard, and I have unlocked this by doing research. And as you can see here, you need 2 graphite and 2 hydrogen. And this is the first tricky bit in terms of progressing your factory, because for you to produce hydrogen, you need to refine oil. The problem is, let me show you, not the problem, let's say the challenge is that you can't just produce one component. So when you build these oil refineries and you select this recipe, you don't have a recipe. Let me use one of these in the back just to show you what I mean. So when you plop these and you select a recipe, I'm going to cancel this for now. So you click a recipe, and that's the only recipe you have basically. As you can see there on the tooltip, you need to transform oil into 2 things. There's no way there's no recipe where you can just produce either refined oil or hydrogen. And in this case, you don't need refined oil, you only need hydrogen. And the problem here is that if refined oil stacks up, then the machine will stop producing. So even though you still need hydrogen, because the other output filled up, it blocks everything. So that's the first challenge, because it's a bit tricky, because in this case I only want hydrogen, but I'm producing both. So there's many ways to do this. The easiest way I think for a beginner is just to burn it. So I burn the oil that I don't need. You can also store it. So I'm kind of doing a hybrid here, but the only reason why I put this storage tank here is to act as a buffer. So while I was setting this all up, this factory, and connecting it to the red cubes matrix lab production, I didn't want this to block the production, if it makes sense. So for example, you can see that the hydrogen is stacking up. So I have more hydrogen than what I need. And what happens? The machine stops producing. So as another example, if I wanted refined oil, this would be a problem for me, because I have maxed out hydrogen, so now I cannot produce refined oil. In this case, it's not a problem, because that's not what I need. So this is the first challenge you have. And again, as a beginner, I would strongly recommend that you either build a lot of the storage tanks and store it for later, or you just burn it. And I think it's more productive. Again, as a beginner, from a beginner perspective, I think it's more productive that you burn it, and burning it means creating these thermal power plants and just use it as energy. Because that's another challenge you have in the early game, is energy. You need energy, a lot of energy for, well, growing your factory. Let's take a look at the matrix itself now. So notice that I have twice as much red cubes than I have blue cubes. Now, I said on the previous video that you shouldn't worry too much about ratios, but this one is an easy one. So I am lazy, guys. So for you to produce blue cubes, whatever materials you need, it produces a blue cube every 3 seconds and a red cube every 6 seconds. So to keep a similar rhythm, because this takes twice as much time, I need twice as many matrix slabs. Make sense? So sometimes as a beginner, you can even do ratios. It's good, okay? If you want to do ratios, by all means, do it. I'm just saying, if you're like me, you're lazy and a casual gamer, doing ratios might feel like doing mathematics homework, so you might not want to do that to have fun, okay? And and that's it. And I use the same thing. Again, the red cubes, or the cubes, all feed into the matrix lab that's configured for research. And that's it. This is still very relatively simple factory. Just zooming out to show you what this means. So on the right hand side, I don't think anything significant changed. Oh yeah, I'm doing foundations. Let me show you this actually. So foundations is what you need in order to manipulate the terrain, so you can use all areas, including the ones that currently have water, to plot buildings. Because when you start, let me zoom out again. When you start, there's a lot of not available construction area. You can also check this on the right hand side, where you have this visual indication here, and you will, this planet, because it's your starting planet, you will need the real estate basically. And the way to build things, well, you can't build things in water, so the only way to do this is to build foundations. Do I have foundations? Yeah, I'll grab a few more. By the way, quick tip, it actually says here on the right hand side, you can use shift or control and left click to transfer some items. So that's what I'm going to do, just transfer one block, because managing the inventory in the beginning is also a challenge. So try to be picky as to what things you put on your inventory, and then you just select the environment modification tab. And there's a tip, I think it's very, very useful. Took me a while to find out. You see, when you put your mouse over the lay foundation decoration icon here, there's a little checkered circle here. If you click, you have to click the actual circle, then you can select colors. Isn't that cool? And you can make really cool things with your factories, which I'll show you in another episode, okay? But in this case, I want to show you the reason why this is useful. So if I want to use this space to build stuff, you just do this. Oh, actually, I like to not have any decoration. Let me do this again. And there you go. And now if I want to use this space, I can do it. Notice on the right-hand side, soil pile, or here as well. So you'll notice some parts are not completely flat. For example, here, look at the soil pile increasing when I do this, because it flattens the land. And look, when I go to the water and I use it, it decreases, because I'm consuming the soil pile to cover the water. And this, in the beginning, try to first grab some soil before you do this, otherwise you'll lose soil quite quickly. Okay. In the later games, what sometimes I do, in the late game, what sometimes I do is I go to a planet that's, let's call hills, that has a lot of hills, and I just grab all the soil piles, so I don't have to worry about this. But just bear in mind the beginning. And I think that's it. This is a very simple one, because you just continue what you started on the previous episode, but with red cubes. And just pay attention to what you actually need, and burn what you don't need, because it's easier. Or you can store. That's, I think I summarized it. Hopefully it makes sense. Just one last thing before I wrap this up. So the next objective is the yellow cube. And I was looking at the right hand side. It's actually a good list about the order of things. Yeah, because you start with the blue, red, yellow, purple, green and white at the end. So the next is yellow. And I've been researching these technologies until I get to the yellow one. And for you to research, you probably, by now, you should already figure this out. You just click activate. And it's researching. And obviously, I could make this go faster by producing more materials and more matrix slabs. But you'll find that you don't need to rush through this. Okay, and this is another tip I have for you. Do not rush. It's better to spend time figuring out a good layout for your factory, and focusing on efficiency, but from a, how can I say this, visual maybe perspective, again, it's very important. I really want to reinforce this idea. If you're a beginner, do not rush and do not cram all the buildings together. And the more I look at this, the more it looks like cram to me. When I started, it felt like, okay, I'm actually separating things. But as you can see, you need to add a little bit more of this and then a little bit more of that, and it's convenient to place buildings next to each other, but in the long run, it isn't. You'll have to trust me on this if you're an absolute beginner. But it's also not too bad if you, like me, are assuming that I will delete everything and create again. So you also don't want to waste too much time. But anyway, you just play whichever way you want. This is just a small tip because I think it will help you in the long run. But ultimately, you need to have fun and just, if you're a beginner, you just want to build things. At least that's how I felt. And that's it, guys. I hope you found this useful. The next episode is going to be about the yellow cubes. Let me zoom out, see if I didn't forget to mention anything important. No, the jump from the blue to red is not difficult, as you can see. The most difficult bit is to understand that you have two outputs and one can block the other, and you only need one. So what do you do with the extra stuff? That's the only bit you need to pay attention. And everything else is pretty straightforward, I think. Well, if you follow the other video. If you didn't, please do. I'll leave a link either here in the video or in the description, or both, probably both, so you can check it out if you need to. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you again on the next one. Bye bye.